Welcome to Messy Christian Mamas. We are three Christian moms with a progressive mindset and loving hearts and minds. We are imperfect humans, but we're all loved in God's sight. At some point, we've all felt like the church and Christianity may not have been for us, but God isn't looking for perfection. He's just looking for you.
We are not experts in Christian theology, and we do not represent any particular Christian faith or church. We are simply here to be authentic, and we hope that you join us on this journey.
In today's episode, we explore dating apps, the Proverbs 31 woman, and gender roles.
Proverbs 31, verses 10 through 31 say, in the Message version of the Bible, "A good woman is hard to find and worth far more than diamonds. Her husband trusts her without reserve and never has reason to regret it. Never spiteful, she treats him generously all her life long. She shops around for the best yarns and cottons and enjoys knitting and sewing. She's like a trading ship that sails to faraway places and brings back exotic surprises. She's up before dawn preparing breakfast for her family and organizing her day. She looks over a field and buys it. Then, with money she's put aside, plants a garden. First thing in the morning, she dresses for work, rolls up her sleeves, eager to get started. She senses the worth of her work, is in no hurry to call it quits for the day. She's skilled in the crafts of home and hearth, diligent in homemaking. She's quick to assist anyone in need, reaches out to help the poor. She doesn't worry about her family when it snows. Their winter clothes are all mended and ready to wear. She makes her own clothing and dresses in colorful linens and silks. Her husband is greatly respected when he deliberates with the city fathers. She designs gowns and sells them, brings the sweaters she knits to the dress shops. Her clothes are well made and elegant. She always faces tomorrow with a smile. When she speaks, she has something worthwhile to say, and she always says it kindly. She keeps an eye on everyone in her household and keeps them all busy and productive. Her children respect and bless her. Her husband joins in with words of praise. Many women have done wonderful things, but you've outclassed them all. Charm can mislead, and beauty soon fades. The woman to be admired and praised is the woman who lives in the fear of God. Give her everything she deserves. Adorn her life with praises."
Whoo-wee.
That was hard to say.
I mean,
without my sarcastic voice coming out.
The only right, you did a really good job of tempering it. I just when we get to the part where it's like she shops around for the best yarns and cottons, and I'm like, yes, I can justify my yarn hoarding. And it makes me a Proverbs 31 woman.
Right, my compulsive shopping habit of...
I don't make myself elegant gowns or mend things.
I don't know that that's when God truly blesses them.
Yeah. I don't really think balloon dogs are what they're talking about. That's when. Well, so this whole Proverbs 31 comes up because two of us are on dating apps. One of us is happily married. Not the current person. Not the current one who's talking. But two of us are single and we are on dating apps. And I was on a dating app and a guy's profile came up and said seeking a Proverbs 31 woman. And when I looked up the verse, I thought, wow, you are really shooting for the stars there.
Right. Shooting something, yeah.
I just don't even know what a man would do with that type of woman.
It is kind of a mystery, isn't it? Like how, what is the role of the man?
and
to praise Proverbs 31 woman.
Just to tell her how pretty she is.
Bring her back down to earth and be like, you did all this stuff, but I hate you. I don't know, what is the purpose of a man? Truly.
I mean, in the verse it says, make sure you praise her and you respect her and everything, which is great. everything. But I'm like, she's buying the field, she's planting the field, she's making the clothes, she's up before dawn making the breakfast. Like, he's really kind of sitting pretty. He's like a house husband at this point. It doesn't really sound like he's bringing a lot to the table.
I guess my question is, like, is it realistic? Is it a realistic standard to measure ourselves against?
Absolutely not. I mean, I don't even know if it was a realistic standard
back then,
right?
I mean, I think it's good to have high standards and to, like, strive for the best, but I don't know. It's like this balance between, like, striving for the best and then kicking yourself because you're not what is supposed to be the best, you know, the most godly.
I do think women, though, who, we all know that, you know, moms are, like, you know, some of the hardest working women out there. So I do feel like a lot of moms, especially working moms, could use this verse as kind of like their leverage to go, you're supposed to be respecting me and praising me. Like, look, I'm doing all of this work, and I'm doing, like, I'm being kind and compassionate, and I'm carrying all of this weight. Like, the least you could do is pick up your towel.
Right.
And, like, instead of dropping on the floor or telling me, like, that was a great dinner, like, I appreciate you, I love you, you know, is showing respect for her. So I do feel like women today can use this verse as, like, a leverage point, as kind of like a reiteration to their husbands to be like, hey, you know, you should be, the Bible does say you should be this, but to hold it up as a standard, as to hold it up as like a laundry list of what you're looking for.
Like, I don't want to date you unless you're doing this and this and this and this and this and this.
Like,
each one has a box to check next to it. Like, you know, it is interesting though, because I do think it sounds ridiculous when you look at this like a list, but the expectations of a woman today are not that far from this list.
I totally agree. And I remember, like, when you first texted about this, you're like, oh, well, I'm screwed. And I really disagree. I really think, like, the three of us, like, already do these things. It's like we might not see it, but we are. Like, we hold up the world, you know, especially, like, single moms and, like, you holding up your family. Like, just, yeah, we already do it.
We already do so much of this stuff. It does sound, but it is maybe a little ridiculous, no?
I feel like the way...
Is that blasphemous to say?
No, I don't think it's blasphemous to say. It's in the Old Testament. It's fine. We're Christians. We're fine. I feel like the more I read it, the more I see kind of in a different light. But when I first read it, and the Message phrases it differently, and it's a little bit easier to comprehend in the Message. But if you read, like, King James or NLT or NIV, like, it's very much about the woman doing everything for everyone else and not for herself. And so to me, like, that was the biggest issue I had with it. It was like, she's not getting up. It doesn't seem like she's getting up every morning to make breakfast for her family because she wants to. It's because that's what makes her godly. She's planting the garden because it's expected of her. She's always has a smile on her face and is wearing elegant clothes and is, you know, mending the, because it's just what's expected. Like, I don't know any woman who wants to wake up before dawn every single day to make her family breakfast and mend clothes and with a smile on her face. Like, you do it because you're a mom and you have to do it.
Right.
But you're not, like, the way that this was, it was like, oh, she's more precious than rubies. Well, yeah, she's the salt of the earth. Like, that's what precious is. I mean, whole civilizations were founded on salt. Like, that's much more precious than a ruby is. So that was the main issue I had with the verse, because it just didn't sound like you're already doing this, so you're already showing godly attributes, which I think more in the New Testament, it is that. It's, you know, being, you know, showing respect and loving your neighbor and having compassion. Like, those are godly attributes that everyone should have, and it's respected. Whereas this was kind of a pedestal verse. Like, you, in order to be respected, like, you can't be respected or treated like a precious ruby unless you are doing all of these things.
Well, it says, who can find a virtuous woman, in the King James 21st century, who can find a virtuous woman, for her price is far above rubies. So this is the expectation of a virtuous woman. So maybe unpacking that word virtuous, what does that really mean? A woman that has virtue. What is...
And if you're not lovable unless you have that, right? Like, I would
Right.
rather feel that, like, God is going to love us even if we're not entirely virtuous our entire lives.
Right. Absolutely.
That's
And
who is.
I think that's what Jesus, right? That's
Right.
Jesus' journey. That's what he did for us, right?
Right.
Yeah, you have to imagine that, like, the women in Jesus' time were probably so thankful to hear this kind of blanket gender, discussions and lectures where it wasn't just like, oh, well, you're a woman, so you have to do this in order for me to find you valuable. It was like, well, everyone is supposed to do this. So it really levels.
That's
the
an
playing
interesting
field.
take. Yeah.
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 It had to be like a sigh of relief. I mean, and then you see of the women who he was friends with. I mean, those weren't considered by any means virtuous women.
Right.
In the Old Testament, they wouldn't be considered virtuous women at all.
Yeah.
And yet they're part of his posse. Like, they're traveling around with him, partaking in his ministry.
Yeah. And as a side note about dating apps, like venturing into this world, just people who like put in their intro that like, I'm seeking this and I'm seeking this. Like, instead of saying that like Alondra's like what I want you to be, like, I just feel like instead you should be like, this is who I am. Like, I am like a godly person. Like, I am a loving person. And then like, if you say that, like, I think you're probably going to attract loving people.
Yeah. I love that. Like, I think that's, I feel like God rewards vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
God rewards
Absolutely.
speaking your truth. And I think that's so important. Like, if you're out there fishing for something, the best way to do that is saying, here's who I am.
Right. I just don't
love that
necessarily
with
think that's rewarded on dating apps.
Sure.
I think in real conversation and real relationships.
What's the
Like a
reward?
adventure.
What's the reward on the dating app?
Exactly. I don't think I want the reward that they think I want. I'm good. And be like, oh, you were vulnerable. I'll be vulnerable. No. Please don't be vulnerable.
Right.
I'm good. We can build up to that. No, because I think it's like, especially on dating apps, I think, that's like the first question that they ask is, well, like, what are you here for? Like, what do you want? And I'm like, I change my mind what I want for breakfast like 6 times before I actually have it. Like, I have no idea. Like, my life is so crazy and so hectic and so out there that I don't know. Like, I'm on here trying to see what it is I want. You, like, the first question that you're asking me shouldn't be that. It should be like, do you like tacos? Like, I mean,
Right.
like, start at
Surface
slow.
level.
Like, yeah, like surface
Right.
level, like speed dating. Like, that's why I thought, so I always thought speed dating was a cool concept because you weren't allowed to get too deep too fast. Because it was all like very fluffy questions, and you only had to spend time like 2 minutes with someone. You can survive anything for 2 minutes.
Right. Which I also think is like more healthy though, to take things slower and not jump into those super deep questions right away.
I'm like, you haven't earned my story yet.
Right,
Like,
right.
You're not ready for this.
Right.
But at the same time, like, you don't want to share your energy with just anybody either, right? So how do you, not being the one that's on the
Vet
dating
people.
apps in that world, like, how do you strike the balance?
Oh, you just forget about the dating apps after a while. Like, you go on there, you get like a bee in your bonnet, and you're just like, I'm gonna do it, and you spend like 3 days like really like gung-ho about it, and then after 3 days you realize how exhausting it is, and you're just like, forget it. Like, you know what?
Well,
if God wants me to be with
if
someone,
they have
he'll
your
put them
deal
in-
breakers, right?
Well, exactly. And I don't necessarily know what it's been so long since I was in a relationship. I don't really know what my deal breakers
Right.
are anymore. I don't think
I know.
Well, you know, yeah. You're a little bit fresher out than I am. But I haven't been in a serious relationship since I was in my mid-20s.
Yeah.
I'm 38. Like, I wasn't in a relationship with my daughter's dad. So, like, I haven't been in a serious relationship for so long. So, my deal breakers at 23 are not going to be the same.
Yeah,
And when I
that's
was
true.
young and single and in college are not going to be the same as 38 as a single mom,
Oh, yeah.
full-time working single mom. So I don't even know what my deal breakers would be. I have some
like Christian.
Yeah, well, I don't see...
No? Godly?
Godly. I think spiritual and godly and Christian, like, obviously, like, I want someone who has, like, it's easier when someone has a similar faith to you and has, say, like, you know, similar morals to you and similar values, but I've been around, I've traveled so much and I've had so many friends of different faiths that have equally strong spiritual sides to them that I do, that... And I always come back to this, well, you know, Jesus said to love everyone. God said to love everyone. Yeah. So my whole thing is that, like, I don't necessarily want to cut someone off just because they might be Muslim or, you know, Hindu or Jewish.
Okay, I have a thought about what we were just saying.
What?
So I used to be a lot more open-minded about this, because my dad is an atheist. And he's one of the most moral people I know. He's a pacifist. Like, he's just super, like, just moral. Sure. But he's an atheist. And so for a long time, I was like, okay, well, I'm okay with dating atheists. I'm okay with dating people who are agnostic. But I've definitely changed my views on that now. That I want someone who is living their life, like, within a discipline. And I feel like a lot of times people I meet who are atheists, it's more of like an ego thing.
No, I actually get what you're...
I don't think I could... beautiful, actually. That is so beautiful. Like, I don't think I could do... I agree with you. I don't think I could do agnostic or atheist. Like, to me, like, you have to have a faith in something. Like, I don't think I believe, like, Satanism or anything like that either. But, like, to me, that if you are devout in whatever religion that you are, and you're still sharing my morals and my values, then... To me, I don't think it's necessarily a deal breaker. It might be different. I've never been in that situation before. It might be different getting into that situation, considering how deeply involved I am at our church, that it might become an issue.
It's a huge part of our lives.
It's a huge part of our lives. And it's a huge part of my daughter's life.
Yeah.
So I do think I would need someone who is equally as devout or is willing to come with me on this. Like, is willing to be like, I will go to church with you, or I will try this out, or I support, you know, my parents don't go to church, but they're very supportive of us going to church. And then, whenever I ask them to come, they always come. So I think that's where a lot of my experience is coming from too. Knowing that my parents are Christians, but don't go to church, but they're very devout in their faith, is where I find this whole deal breaker thing kind of iffy, just because, one, I've never been in that situation, and two, I have so much that I have, like, overcome that I'm like, I mean, really, this is kind of this is not where.
I might have a slightly different take on this, but I think I think that's a really beautiful thing to, like, be on a path yourself toward self-betterment and using the construct of Jesus, you know, to get there.
Yeah.
I think it's difficult in a really intimate relationship to not be, what's the word? Equally yoked. For me, in my marriage, there were so many years we were not on the same page. You know, my own faith journey has had a lot of hills and valleys and looked very different from what it does right now. But once the two of us got closer to the same page, I don't know that I would say that we're 100% there today, but we're closer than we've ever been. And the intimacy I feel like we're able to have with each other looks a lot different.
Do you think that our church aided in that?
Our church, or church in general, I think church for us was part of the discipline.
Okay.
You know, and I think both of us taking on that discipline helped bring us closer together.
I also think cool. Like, it's one of these things too, though, that I can't just say, like, oh, we have to be a Christian, because we know, as part of doing this podcast, was like, we were doing this for modern Christian women who were on the more progressive side. Well, I could meet someone who says, well, I'm a very devout Christian, but has completely different morals and virtues than I do. So I don't want to necessarily say, I don't where we live. I don't want to necessarily, like, I dislike that question on the dating apps. Is like,
Yes.
are you looking for, like, do they have to be a Christian? And I'm like, well, not necessarily.
Can they not be a
because they could be a
fundamentalist?
bad, yeah, they could be a bad,
Right,
they
I'm
could be a
equally
bad,
skeptical.
they could be a bad Christian. Like, we could just be a different, and I've met Buddhists and Hindus and Muslims and Jews who are much more progressive and much more share my values and my morals and are much more supportive of my faith journey and have been supportive in the last 8 years of my faith journey than a lot of people who I knew who were, you know, very conservative Christians. So it's one of these things where I'm just kind of like, you know, my deal breakers are a lot more superficial, right? Like, they can't be a decade.
Height.
They can't height. Oh, I am the most
tall,
petty.
though.
I am the most petty when it comes to height, because I'm like, if you are not at least 5'10", like, we are not going to have a good time. They can't be a decade younger than me, as much as Kendra has been trying to get me to be robbing the cradle.
That's what. No.
We don't need to talk about that here.
I'm in my late 30s. Kendra's like, he's in his late 20s. What's the difference of these decades?
A big one.
Maybe
A big one.
early 20s. But
Anyway.
So back to Proverbs 31, off the dating apps. Thank God, getting off the dating apps.
Yeah.
Which I haven't been on in like 3 weeks. So I'm like curious to get on it. So now you have your video.
I'd love to play. There's this gentleman on TikTok that wound up on my FYP, and he has a really
What's
interesting
an FYP?
For you page.
It's like the algorithm, basically.
Okay.
It's the algorithm page.
Cool.
So this guy is not coming at this from a religious perspective, but his whole idea of the role a woman should play in the relationship is very different from the way I've heard other men articulate what they're looking for. So he's a guy in his 60s. And his name is Drayton Nay on TikTok. So let's take a listen.
Whoa, ladies, I need you to comment on this one right here. Read it with me. Keeping house is a wife's job. He made a woman to be a helper to a man. And if young, bear children and be a housekeeper. Is that right? Is that what you women think? That he created women just to help a man and be his housekeeper? Is that right? Wow. What kind of man needs all that help? That's my question. Either you're a man and you take care of your business, or you don't. You know, I mean, I bought my own house when I was 21 years old, and I took care of my house. I took care of everything in the house. I cooked, I cleaned, I cut the grass, I took care of everything. And then when I got married, I did not ask my wife or tell my wife, hey, you're my new housekeeper. Hey, you do this. Hey, what she did do is she did pick up some of the cooking and she did do the laundry. She liked doing it. So that is what took place in my first marriage. I don't understand why you guys think it's okay to give women assignments and chores to do without even so much as considering what else you could be doing. Do you really want women doing half the load? You really want women in many cases doing all the load. I can't tell you how many women go, oh, he comes down, sits in the chair, plays video games. Really? And you're a man, and you take care of your household, and you're sitting there playing video games? Yeah, I don't get it. But I couldn't disagree with this more. Maybe I'm wrong. Ladies, if I'm wrong, say I'm wrong. Maybe she's right, but I think she's dead wrong. Like and follow and tell me what you think in the comments.
Yeah. Whenever we get into like these sort of debates about like division of labor and things like that, I always just think about like, what if I was a man or a bajillionaire or something and people could do everything for me? Would I still want that? And I don't think I would. Like, I think I would want to be self-sufficient, and I would want to like be able to take care of my life. Yeah, that's interesting.
It is. He goes on to say in other videos, his perspective isn't as pure as maybe what it sounds like directly here. You know, he's basically his perspective is he wants his woman to feel taken care of. That him as a provider sort of extends into more areas of their life than just the financial. And so for him, it is all the house chores that he wants to take care of. And however, he does want her, he has two things that he wants from her, and basically that is to look good and to provide special company.
And that's it. That's just those two things.
Okay. Provide daily marital relations. My Lord.
The new list.
I'll take the laundry. I'll take the laundry.
I know, right?
I'll be like, you know what? I'll do the dishes.
There's always a catch. There's always a catch.
Like, you want to do what again? No, I'll vacuum. I'm good. I'm okay.
Right.
You want me to put on a bra and get dressed and put makeup on? It is Saturday.
I'm about to do the dishes.
I'm about to go clean the bathroom.
When he said he wants her to be like nicely dressed, I was like, oh, I don't think my top knot fits into that.
No. I'm like nicely dressed. I've got a whole half of my closet with dresses, and my dad was like, "Are you planning on wearing any of these anytime soon?" And I was like, put on leggings and a sweatshirt again.
Right.
This is an argument that I had in my marriage earlier on. I would say because my husband would see me going out looking all dressed to the nines, wearing like a cute little outfit, my makeup fully done, hair done. But then I get home and it's the sweats, the hair goes up, the makeup comes off. And he's like, I just feel like, this is this great version of you that you're only giving to the world. And it took me a long time to understand that I wasn't giving the world the most vulnerable version of me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was reserved for him, and that he had to understand that was his gift.
Right. Yeah.
That like he got me.
I'll take
vulnerability.
The real me, not the curated version that I supply the world.
I'll take vulnerability, but can we like some chapstick on? Maybe a clean t-shirt. Like.
Okay, I have a hard question. If we flip the script and we're going to make a list of a godly man, what's a godly man?
Yeah, because that does definitely put some gender roles on that.
Like
because
if we were on the dating profile, we're like, I want this, and this from my godly man.
I think I do like the whole like respect and praise. I think praising to me, it sounds like you're giving a dog a treat, like or petting a dog. So not only the praising. Words of affirmation are my love language, but they have to be genuine. Like they just can't be like mouth candy. Like they have to be genuine in what they're being said. But someone who is providing for their family in more ways than just financial. Are they, providing a sounding board for their spouse, or their partner? Are they, supporting their kids in, whatever dreams they particularly have? Like I look at my parents, and my parents do have very much this old-fashioned kind of, dad is the breadwinner, mom is like if you looked at it from the surface, it was very much like my dad's breadwinner, mom's housewife. When you get into my house, you realize that they're much more equal than it appears from the outside, because my dad so heavily depends on my mom for moral and mental and emotional support, and my dad is such a cheerleader for our family. Like he is the one that we all call to fix things, because we know that he'll fix it, whether it's superficial, like the plumbing or something like that, or if we've had a really bad day and we just need a soundboard. Like that has always been my dad. So when I think of a godly man, I think of my dad, because he is such a great provider for his family. Like we know that he will always make sure that we'll be okay. And I think a godly man is always going to put his family ahead of himself. So that to me is that he is not his top priority. His family and his spouse are his top priority.
Yeah. I think I would want a man that loves himself the way that God loves him. And like he loves himself enough and knows that God's love so that he can love other people. I think that's not a gender thing, actually. I think it's like people.
Yeah.
Like, do you love yourself enough that you can share that love with other people?
I don't know if I have a list necessarily, but I think what I've been working on in my own marriage over the last couple of years is I had become so hard. And I was the breadwinner, I was the one that was working, and my husband was a stay-at-home dad. And I had always been the career woman, even before that, though. And I feel like playing that role of provider so literally, I think it did harden me. And I don't think that means that the man has to be the breadwinner. That's not what I mean by it. But I think as a woman, and this gets tricky because this is such a gendered conversation. I know we all feel like we are all very progressive in our thoughts about gender. But I think what I wasn't getting from my husband in the past was he wasn't creating a space for me to be able to be soft. And for me, that's what I really need.
So going on that same thought of, your husband not allowing you to have space to be soft, I think that's where a lot of issues are coming in for men, is that society doesn't allow them to be soft. Like, they have to be hard. They have to be masculine. They can't show emotion. They have to be strong-willed, and they have to be tough, and and I think with this new generation, and there is kind of this shift of, you're allowed to show vulnerability, you're allowed to show emotion, you're allowed to talk about your feelings. Like, it doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you soft. It doesn't make you, I think men need that in their relationships, because I think where women are put on pedestals to be the perfect housewives, men are also put on pedestals to be the perfect provider. And so we've got these very tall pedestals that are very flimsy and are so easily knocked over by a misunderstood tone or just a stereotypical comment. And so I think that as much as we need men to allow us to be hard in relationships, it's just as equally as important to allow men to be soft in a relationship.
I 100% agree with that. And I'll give you a really specific example that happened last night about this exact issue. So something came up with my daughter, and my husband came to me to talk to me about this issue, and it was almost in an accusatory way, saying, like, what you're doing is contributing to this issue. And I got so defensive, and before I said anything back, I took a breath and I was like, can you please come to me with these things more tenderly? I agree with you that this is what's occurring, and I can fix that. When you come at me in an accusatory way, I get defensive, and I'm not able to have the right conversation with you.
Yeah, because you're going to go on automatic defense mode.
Right. And
even if you know that you're wrong, like, you're still going to go on. It's just human.
But, like,
it's human
the
nature.
tenderness begets tenderness.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying, right? So if he approaches me tenderly, then I'm more able to vulnerably say, I can do better.
Yeah.
So I totally agree. I think we need more tenderness and more softness in the world, period.
How did that sound?
Try a little tenderness.
That's our theme song.
It totally should be. I love that song.
Yeah, so
it's on my dating profile.
I want to tender.
I feel like that's the end.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Messy Christian Mamas. If you would like to connect with us, you can find us on Instagram or email us at messychristianmamas@gmail.com. Until next time, embrace the mess, share the love, and shine your light bright, my friends.